All right. Yeah.
Hello,
Hey
Internet.
there, Internet.
Hey, Internet. Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program.
What are we doing today, Matt?
So, as you recall, the last time we returned a whole shit ton of science from Minmus, and that unlocked a whole bunch of new experiments for us. Now, also, our window to send a vehicle to Moho is quickly approaching. According to Kerbal Alarm Clock, it's supposed to be in like the next 4 days. So I am building a set of robotic probes to go there.
Sweet.
This is the top
nice
part. So this is going to be a 2-stage probe. It's going to have the part I'm constructing right now is a lander stage. You notice that I added. Do you see that purple thing that I added to the side?
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. I'm like, that's a weird splotch of color.
So that's actually a soil sampling unit.
Okay.
I wish I could remember what it's called because it has a hilarious name.
Any reason why it's purple? Any reason why it's purple?
Because there's 2 of them and the big one's red.
Good answer.
The original mod, I actually found that when I was looking. I actually found this mod when I was looking at the Space Telescope mod, which I still have yet to use. And it was adapted. It's part of the Beastly Science Pack. And the original one was just slate gray, which made it look a lot, you know. They just decided to make it bright colors to make it like more cartoony, and also they changed the soil sampling thing to make it look more, give it more intimidating jaws. So right now so I also added a whole bunch of other instruments that would be useful to a lander. And then for the orbital injection stage, I'm also making that an orbital stage. So I've added a long-range antenna. I've added a magnetometer, gamma ray spectrometer, which finds antimatter in the atmosphere. I'm also adding the 3 things in a line there are all the ScanSat things, which... This
thing's gonna be, like, long as fuck.
Yeah, no, it's amazingly long. I'm also adding 4 cameras to the lander. There's one camera on the injection stage.
You're ready to do some serious science. Aw, sweetheart.
Yeah, that fits in the theme of the naming of the rest of the vehicles in this. And then I have to. One of the things about the cameras is you have to assign them to action groups to make them work. Because when you right click on them to activate them, it changes your viewpoint to, you know, the viewpoint of the camera. And when it changes to the viewpoint of the camera, you can no longer right click on the camera to turn it off.
That seems like something that the developers should be aware of.
Well, the thing is, the developers of the mod just say add this to an action group, like just map it to an action group, and so they designed it with that in mind. And they did set up a thing, so there's actually an option on there that says next camera, so you only actually have to assign 1 camera to an action group. For activate, deactivate, zoom in, zoom out, next camera, previous camera.
This thing does not look aerodynamically sound at all.
Yeah, I had to run a lot of testing to actually do it. Because and I had to figure out the proper, as I mentioned last time, the laws of aerodynamics changed with with changing the Ferrum pack. And one of the things about this is that if you go too fast in the lower atmosphere, your vehicle will experience high dynamic pressure and shred apart.
Yeah, it's looking kind of shaky. I'm nervous.
It's only looking shaky because I have reaction wheels on the probe stage, and those are fighting with the fins on the rocket stage. So the probe stage, because it has the reaction wheels, wants to turn harder, and so there's a lot of turning force in the upper stage of the vehicle. And the camera follows the probes because those are the active part of the vessel. So whenever I make a minor turn, because I only have digital controls, because I don't have a joystick or anything, I'm controlling this with a keyboard. So the only controls I have to the yaw and pitch and roll are 0% or 100%.
Would it be easier for you to get a joystick?
If I had a joystick, I would have analog control, and that would make flying this easier.
Is that ideal Kerbal space program gaming MLG Pro.
Yeah, no, that's
360 no joystick.
Yeah, 360 no joystick. Now, I will say here, I will spoiler this a little bit. When I ended up getting this thing into orbit, I ended up trying to find an orbit to intersect Moho, which is the first planet from the sun, and I can't seem to find an orbit that does that. So I checked the Kerbal alarm clock again for my injection time, and as soon as I got this into orbit, suddenly it said that my window to actually go to Moho is in fact 14 days away.
Oh. So what can we do?
So I'm just placing this in a parking orbit until I'm ready to ship it out.
All right.
So we'll get back to that later.
Super. All right. Well then, since that was kind of a bust, what do we got now?
In the meantime, we also unlock new spaceplane parts. So we have our.
We're making a space plane.
Yeah.
It's been so long.
Yeah, it's been literally since last episode.
It's been so long.
I know. I'm betting. So one of the things, I finally figured out how to properly use infernal robotics, and so I'm using that to I'm using that in the cargo bays we have to properly actually place all of the stuff inside my space plane instead of just.
It's looking more like a space train, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we're gonna run a space train on this whole system.
Now, see, you just went and made it dirty. I was just honestly talking about engines.
Yeah, sure you were. So this is a test version of our vehicle, because since it's a cargo holding vehicle, I wanted to see what the maximum payload I could hold was. So
yeah, it's looking huge.
So instead of making, the full vehicle will have a full cargo bay and only a little bit of this will be fuel. This one has a very tiny cargo bay to hold all the necessary components, and then the rest of it is just fuel tanks.
Wheels for days.
This thing's heavy.
Yeah, man, you're making it huge.
Yeah, because I want it to. It needs to be long to be able to hold hold payloads. Like I want to be able to put something like a full rocket in this.
Hold all of our science.
Hold all of our science, and so as suggested by Amanda, our space shuttle.
Oh, this is Sugar.
Yeah, our space shuttle is called Sugar.
Aww.
Given that this was a test vehicle, I didn't actually intend to originally record this, but the launch profile actually turned out pretty well. So I don't actually have the ascent stage recorded, but we will see the rest of it.
Cool.
So, and also this is where I figured out how to use the docking alignment thing. And you see the Infernal Robotics, I put a little adjustable rail on there. And so I can actually pop the docking port out of the cargo bay, which is what I did there. You can see that the docking port is actually sticking up beyond the cockpit of the shuttle.
Mm.
And I realized that, this was actually working pretty well. I got up into orbit using less fuel than I predicted, and I could actually rendezvous with the space station carrying, 10 tons of fuel.
Jeez.
So I decided as long as I have 10 tons of fuel, I might as well refuel all of my vehicles up here.
You've essentially turned it into a gas station.
I mean, that's kind of the important bit of it.
Yeah.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Kerbal space program. A Class C meteorite is expected to impact the northwestern hemisphere within the next 5 days. Estimates are that it will impact southeastern New Sod, southwestern Bailia, or northern Girinia. This is a very serious and life-threatening situation. Due to the nature of this event, residents in these locations are advised to begin evacuation. Please listen to local authorities on where to evacuate. Stay tuned to media outlets for updates on this situation.
Matt!
Yeah.
That was scary. I'm scared now.
Yeah, well, and the problem is that following my rule, I launched a rocket less than a week ago now. And we need to be able to intercept this asteroid we just discovered that came seemingly out of nowhere and is now on a collision course with the planet.
Oh my, but millions are gonna die, man. What are we gonna do?
Well,
Call up Kerbal Bruce Willis.
I'll get Bruce Kerman. So we have successfully brought this space. We've successfully brought space this test vehicle is called Skytrain, but because I had a different naming convention in mind when I first built it. But we've proved that this can get into orbit carrying like 10.5 tons of cargo. Now, I know for a fact that the largest fuel tank I can fit into the cargo bay only weighs 5 tons.
Okay.
And as I said before, I've exceeded my launch limit for rockets. I have a big vehicle that can hold a 5-ton fuel tank, and on top we just got, as I said last episode, we just unlocked an incredibly efficient new rocket engine.
Matt, are you trying to tell me that we're gonna turn sugar into a bomb? Are we gonna drive sugar into the heart of that meteor?
Not exactly. Not exactly.
Okay.
No.
Good, because I like sugar.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be effective at all.
Okay.
But that said...
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, no. But that said, that actually, while we're talking about the idea of asteroid deflection and destruction, I will say that the Armageddon approach, the reason those films all talked about nukes is because that actually was one of the approaches considered, not at all in the way that it happened in Deep Impact or Armageddon, but it's my favorite way because it sounds so simple until you consider the ramifications of it. Okay, so in Armageddon and Deep Impact, the plan was we're going to get into this asteroid and we're going to drill a hole into it, and then we're going to put a nuke in it and blow it up.
Yes, that was the plan.
So the actual real life plan that was based on, and I can't remember the name of the guy who came up with this, but the actual real life plan was to launch a rocket that contains 2 nuclear warheads. And basically what will happen, and I overshoot the runway by a mile, but it's fine because this thing has jet engines and just it's got fuel. It's got fuel for days. But the actual plan is to launch a rocket with 2 nuclear warheads, and the plan is that one of the warheads actually has another rocket on it, so it will detach and go ahead of the other warhead. The plan is that they will have scouted the asteroid out ahead of time and find a good impact site. And basically, one warhead will hit the asteroid, blast a giant crater into it, and then it will immediately be impacted in the same place by the second warhead.
No need for a drilling team.
That will blow it apart. Now, I assume that you kind of recognize the flaws in this plan.
No.
If the asteroid, so happens to be spinning at all, making 2 impacts of high-velocity vehicles on a rotating target within a short time span, that's not a difficult feat at all.
NASA can do anything.
So we bring sugar in. We're 10 kilometers out from the runway. Bob Kerman's freaking out. Jeb is just excited because
they didn't get any sleep.
He never sleeps.
No.
He never sleeps.
Either of them.
He dreams awake of space.
They both wide awake just to hear the other breathing.
Jeb and Bob, they are the greatest heroes of our generation. So we successfully did touch down the vehicle. So we reconfigure the vehicle from one that carries 10 tons of fuel to one with a cargo bay. And from there, I have to rebuild the jet engine sections because they didn't want to refit on.
Sugar's getting some new pants.
Sugar's getting some new pants, indeed. I also rebuild the cluster engines because if you notice from that landing, a basic landing profile, I put the lower cluster engines a little too low. Fortunately, we were prepared for that. We had a secondary set up. And now, with the cargo bay completed, we have to build our asteroid redirect probe, which I build in the launch in the VAB because it's way easier, and I can use the sub-assemblies to hang on to it. So there's our new high-efficiency rocket. And we take that and we place it in the cargo bay, where it fits nice and snug.
Yeah. Go kick that asteroid where the sun don't shine.
Yeah. Maybe we do kick it where the sun does shine, because that might be a little easier. But you know what? We did install some lights on our probe.
Kick the asteroid in the asteroid.
And so this time, since it is for all the marbles, I did actually film this part. I also figured out exactly how fast the vehicle needs to be going in order to achieve lift. And so you'll notice that I do a lot of time acceleration in this. Also, this vehicle takes a very long time to get into orbit, so we're going to kind of do a highlight reel of the orbital injection, because this literally takes 20 minutes in game, which means it took 40 minutes out of game. Actually, a little less, because as you can see, I'm still time accelerating if you look up at the top. So we just get a lot of really interesting, high-impact, high-profile sequences. Finally, engaging the cluster engines in the back. And the reason I use the cluster engines, this is actually sort of a I don't know, KSP pro gaming tip, is that these.
Write this down.
Is that these 5 engines together? They drain just a little bit more fuel, but they produce more power and they weigh less than their equivalently efficient larger engine. So if you can find a way to cluster 5 of these engines together, and as we get into orbit, we open the cargo bay to expose our radiators so that we can radiate all the heat generated by our solar panels in the back.
Gosh, that planet looks pretty.
Yeah. I like how the ocean keeps fluctuating. Just slowly overtaking the coastline.
It's alright.
So there is the asteroid.
We have to save it, Matt. We have to save this planet.
We gotta save it. We gotta save the northwestern hemisphere.
Now, what's to say the asteroid's not just gonna burn up in the atmosphere?
So the thing is, there's a very high possibility it's going to burn up in the atmosphere. The problem is that as a Class C asteroid, it is like about 10 meters in diameter. So it will burn up in the atmosphere. The problem is that it will create an air blast equivalent to about 25 Hiroshima bombs.
Oh.
So it's not a danger to the entire planet, which is why the Kerbal alert system only recommended evacuation from these specific areas. So we have an optimal objective, which is to safely bring the asteroid into an orbit that passes the planet. We have a second objective if we cannot succeed on the first objective, which is to bring the asteroid into a splashdown orbit over the ocean, where it explodes without doing any damage. So we eject the probe, and we establish contact with the ground. Ground contact goes and renames it Spice, obviously.
Spice!
The companion to Sugar.
Oh, my favorite 90s pop girl band.
And so we bring Spice, we adjust the orbital trajectory of Spice, And with that, we now have to focus on bringing Sugar back down to the planet safely while Spice gets into a position to begin its injection stage.
Spice does her dang job.
Also, you notice that we boosted our apoaps really high, and that's because it's much easier to make an inclination change when your apoapsis is much higher from the planet, because basically you're changing your apoaps is a matter of your current speed. And when you're at your apoapsis, you're going much slower. So it's much easier to affect an inclination change because it's easier to change your entire orbit around the slower you're going. So we bring Sugar back.
Whoa! Why is Bob looking so freaky down there in the corner?
It's because I upgraded the Kerbal texture replacer, and the way that it has a new version of compression, which does weird things with lighting. So yeah, you'll notice that Jeb's face is really dark, and one of Bob's eyes has a lot of weird shading on it, and that's because it does much blockier shading now to save on memory, which is good in as much that I like to save memory so that the game.
But it also makes it look like he's got a black eye or some sort of.
It makes him look really weird.
Like the disease in that one movie.
Oh yeah, that movie.
Not Alien or Aliens or Alien 3 or Alien vs. Predator.
I don't know what movie you're talking about.
The one with the dumb one of the Charlize Theron.
Aeonflux? There's no disease in Aeonflux. It's literally the only Charlize Theron movie I know.
Is that not Charlize Theron in it? Prometheus.
Oh yeah. That hot piece of garbage.
His black eyeball. I like parts. I like the aesthetic of it. I like the look of it.
You can see the Rantry plasma through the cockpit.
I wanted to say Pacific Rim just because it started with a P and it was a sci-fi movie. I'm like, no, it wasn't that.
Also, one thing I did not expect, I had to make Sugar longer to actually accommodate the size of the probe than the test vehicle. And one thing I expected that didn't actually happen. The test vehicle had this habit where it would occasionally go into a weird corkscrew spin through its center of mass that sometimes that in test flights I could not recover from. And I expected that to get worse when I made it longer, but actually making the vehicle longer made it more manageable somehow.
It balanced it out, huh?
Yeah. And I'm not sure why. Also, in the case that I discovered this vehicle sometimes has a tendency to go into spins, but it pulls out of them really easily if I just pull up. Like, it stabilizes instantly if you just pitch up. And I'm guessing that's
got something to do with your wing.
Yeah, it's because I have the wings angled in a V shape.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I did because I learned that I learned the hard way through earlier testing. If you don't do that, if you pitch up, it makes your vehicle more likely to go into I think it's either called a lateral spin or a pancake stall, which is
one of those sounds significantly more delicious than the other.
Obvious. Yeah, I love me some laterals with some syrup. So I actually do try and shoot for the runway in this one, and I realize at the very last minute that I am facing entirely the wrong angle. That said, I think one of the other things is making the vehicle longer. It stabilized it out partly because I have the canards on the front, which allow me greater pitch authority, and also because I have because of the lifting body mechanics. Because the cargo bays are actually pretty light when there's nothing in them. So we successfully touched on Sugar. So now it's totally up to Spice, which we're piloting through our deep space network. As you recall, we have the CurbNet system, which is placed at in a geocentric orbit. That is also how we sent our global Kerbal alert system.
Spice, I believe in you.
I also realized
Who's your favorite Spice Girl?
I also realized I didn't install any. I didn't install any radiators on this, but this vehicle is not destined to have a very long lifespan.
Nah, poor Spice. Just like the girls.
Yes, it will not exceed the 90s.
Oh no. Who is your favorite Spice Girl, Matt?
Honestly, I didn't follow the Spice Girls too.
Then make one up. Just humor me.
I'll just say Scary Spice.
You know what? Scary is my favorite too. So there we go.
Yeah. I think I watched Spice World.
Spice World is a hilarious movie. It's so bad. It's one of those so bad it's good movies.
I know it was on how this get made. So we're making rendezvous with the with asteroid QON 472. This is actually going to be our first effort to redirect an asteroid, because we did not expect to have to do this so soon.
No.
And also we are rendezvousing with it in a strange way, because I went for the most direct route because I wanted to rendezvous with it as fast as possible. So I actually came into its orbit. I came in perpendicularly to its orbit, and then
it's coming right for you, man. Ah!
Yeah, well, we're only coming in at 2 meters per second. And so we turn on our lights so that we can see the surface, because we want to find a flat point to dock with, or to grab with the claw. That it also gives us a through point to the center of mass, because we want to be firing through the center of mass, so that as much as we can, because otherwise our attempts to redirect the asteroid will just cause the rocket engine to put it into a spin, and that's wasting fuel and energy. So so with our advanced cameras on board, we redirect it, looking for a very flat point that still goes through to the center of mass.
Mm-hmm.
To grab it, so that we can, in fact, fire our engines through that center point and make the most efficient use of our fuel.
Man, it's a good thing we never had to actually do this in real life, huh?
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot of different ways that we're considering doing in real life. I mentioned in the last episode that there's the shrink wrapping plan.
Yeah.
There's actually one that I hadn't heard of until recently. That would be a much longer term plan, because one of the problems is that not every asteroid is completely solid. So we have the maneuver node set up here to try and push it off to the side, and we only have to change our delta V by 200 meters per second. When I constructed this, it said we had 4,500 meters per second of delta V, but obviously it didn't expect us adding another 10 tons of asteroid to the vehicle.
Yeah.
So you notice we're changing our delta V very, very slowly here. So, likely we're not going to be able to do our optimal burn here to change the position of this completely into a harmless orbit.
As long as it's not going to kill anybody.
Yeah. So, and also we have to, it's a good thing we packed as much RCS fuel on this, because you notice I have to keep doing corrections, because as much as I got close to it, we're still not perfectly through the center of mass. You can see the planet off in the side there, and we're attempting to move this. I end up getting this to a periapsis of negative 80 kilometers, which is much better than its initial periapsis of minus 500 kilometers. But anyway, as I was saying before, one of the problems is that not every asteroid that we have is necessarily a completely solid body. There are some that are referred to as gravel piles, which are basically, as the name suggests, they are just a giant chunk, they're just a giant collection of just loose rocks that have gravitated together and coalesced, but they don't have any necessary bonding beyond gravity. And so one of the things that we have to do with that, as you can see, our orbital projections are that we'll come in over the ocean. And so we just have to bring this in safely and direct it safely over the oceans of Kerbal. But so anyway, the problem with a gravel pile is that we can't even grab it with anything, because it's just a loose pile of rocks. But there is a probe, there is a thing that we could do that through just maneuvering around the asteroid, we could use the very tiny amount of gravity that the probe would produce. And you can see the reentry effect. I really love that you can see the reentry effects and the differences, how much the asteroid is shielding us.
Wow.
And so the asteroid explodes.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
As does the...
Oh no! Spice! Oh!
So we evaluate the situation. Take a look.
There is nothing left.
We exploded about 50 kilometers off the coast at a height of 20 kilometers up.
Ashes to ashes.
The air blast likely did not reach the coast, so no damage was done. However, people were advised to stay indoors and not look at this, as the light would be much brighter than the sun. But yeah,
Spice died so that we may live.
such is true, and such is life.
Hmm. Is this where it ends? We say goodbye to the internet now?
Yeah, we could say goodbye.
Sweet title card, Tuxedo Demon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some other
Love it.
stuff provided by some other guys.
Oh yeah. Don't sue us, even though he illegally used that noise.